Hi, it's Lipstick Gal. Thank you so much for watching today. Wanted to do a get ready with me and just kind of catch you up on what's been going on. I'd love to know how your summer is going. So take a minute to let me know down below what you've been up to, what's been like the highlight, or maybe something that's kind of been like, ugh, but we're done now. All right, thank you so much for watching and thank you for being subscribed. I already have my face primed. I'm gonna start out with just a little bit of this. I may not tell you absolutely everything I'm using, but I will list it below. If I'm in the middle of chatting, I might just keep going. So I have had I would say mid-June, it's been really busy. My brother and I drove to California. We both live in Washington State on opposite corners, but I drove to his place and then we drove to California for a family memorial. Last summer, one of our family members passed away from COVID and we hadn't been able to get together, just like so many families hadn't. And our uncle was a healthcare provider and ran his own office and saw a lot of patients and caught it, unfortunately, from one of his patients, and he and his wife got sick. My aunt recovered and my uncle didn't. And my mom, who lives in Ohio, was like, I can't miss it. She drove out. So my mom drove out, took her 4 days to get from Ohio to California. And once she was in California, we just road tripped all the way back up to Washington. And so she spent 3 weeks here at my house and just recently left on Friday to spend some time with my brother who lives 4 hours away. My brother has a 3.5-year-old and it's been a while since my mom has seen all of her grandkids. So she was able to see, both my kids and head to my brother's and see her other granddaughter. And she's as happy as a clam, like grandparents with their grandkids. And my dad's at home like, when do I get to go? She goes, when you retire. So my mom's footloose and fancy free here out west still, but not here at my house. We had the best time though. My mom and I had the best time, but I'll tell you, I've been really tired. Last week was particularly exhausting. I should quit putting this on. I'm gonna end up with too much of this. Just a little dab here. And then I'm gonna end up not having anything settle well underneath my eyes. So for foundation today, I'm gonna do something that I saw Nancy H mention in my foundation declutter. She says she does, I'm just looking at my phone, she does a 1/4 teaspoon of SPF 50 plus 1 drop of high coverage foundation plus 1 drop of luminizer. So, hello Paula's choice, let's do this. And I hadn't taken the time to put on my SPF yet, and I'm wondering how it's gonna sit over primer. Let's hope it goes well. I'm going to use the Catrice HD liquid cover, just a drop of that. Ooh, that's a little more than a drop. And for a liquid luminizer, I'm going to use the Elevated Glow by Eldridge, and I'm just going to put a little bit of this right here, and I'm going to mix it up. Thank you, Nancy. All right, I'm wearing white pants, so I'm taking a minute here to just make sure I don't have any foundation on my hands anywhere. I had some trouble mixing this together, and it could be that I was impatient. I didn't mix for very long. So I had the SPF in my palm, a couple of drops of foundation and luminizer, and as I was swirling it together, I saw white and like skin tone streaks in there. And I mixed it for like, 5-6 seconds. I'm like, oh, this isn't working. So I rubbed my hands together and I was like, oh no, now I have it. So then I was rubbing it in. I feel like I ended up with more of it on my hands maybe than on my face. I feel like it looks really pretty. I might need just a little bit more coverage in certain areas, but that I think is where concealer is gonna come in. So this week was a little stressful. My husband had surgery, not this week, last week. Man, I'm trying to tell you this story and I'm struggling, to just be honest. My husband has been healthy our entire marriage, and he's still healthy, but he's never been sick enough to, hardly take time off of work. He'll get a cold or a flu like once every 4 or 5 years, and it'll lay him low for 2 or 3 days, and then he's fine. He's never really been significantly ill, and I never thought that he would be the one needing to have surgery. I mean, anybody could need surgery, but it was one of those things that in our relationship, we've been married for 19 years. He's gone through 13 surgeries with me. I'm the person who is at the doctor all the time. I've had 5 brain surgeries. I've had lots of laparoscopic surgeries, gallbladder problems, kidney stones, you know, you name it. I had my first surgery, I've had 14. The first one I had, I was 13. So I kind of feel like for much of my life, I've just been at the doctor. I've not been the healthiest person ever, which is fine, but I'm doing pretty good these days. And so it was weird when my husband came home from the doctor in, I think it was April, and he's like, well, didn't want to worry you, but I had another biopsy on this thing that's been growing on my thyroid. And I was like, oh, and when he said another biopsy, because he had one last year, and I was like, that's not a good thing. He goes, yeah, they did an ultrasound too. He says, well, it's still benign. And I was like, and then he said, but the ENT told me that we should probably do a surgery and remove the right lobe of my thyroid because that's where the growth is. And I was like, okay. And to me, it was like, you know, somebody who's had 14 surgeries, no big deal. Just have surgery. It's not a big deal. They'll take it out and it'll be fine. And he has had one surgery when he was 3 years old. He had a lazy eye that he had to fix when he was a kid. He doesn't remember it. He had no clue. And so he's like, but they're gonna cut on me. And I was like, yeah, it's no big deal. And he's like, but it's gonna be me. And I was like, I need to be a little bit more concerned about how you feel and why this would be stressful for someone. But I was concerned the fact that they'd done multiple biopsies and then they did an ultrasound and the recommendation was surgery. And I didn't know if it was surgery because it was a benign growth, but sometimes benign growths can change. And let's take it out before it changes, or whether it was causing an obstruction. And he didn't want to have surgery. I said, you know what? If you don't want to have surgery, get a second opinion and see if another ENT tells you the same thing. So he goes to another ENT. We live in a really small town, so this was a recommendation from the local doctor. And he's like, I'm going to do what you do. I'm going to go to Seattle. So he goes to Seattle, and the ENT there says, you know what? You shouldn't just have a hemilobectomy where we take out half. You need a total thyroidectomy where we take the whole thing. And he was like, that was not what he wanted to hear, but he's like, okay. And so he put it on the schedule, and it happened last week on Wednesday. So I was at the hospital with him. He was really chill. And this was the first time, just recently, have the hospitals here in our state finally started allowing people to be in there more than like 2 hours at a time, like guests who aren't patients, visitors, I would say. And the fact that I was finally able to go with my husband back into pre-op prep, like before the surgery, when the nurses, you know, get you out of your clothes, into your hospital gown, start your IV, do all of that, start any, you know, pre-surgery meds. And I've done that 14 times. And he's come with me 12 of those 13 times because the surgery I had last July, they weren't letting anybody in the hospital. And so he's almost always been there with me. And I was like, you know, he's stressed. I'm going to go with him. I was glad that they were able to let me in and be there with him. And then I was able to wait in the waiting room. And that seems kind of like a weird thing, but a lot of what's happened here in the state of Washington, they just, until fairly recently, like late spring, early summer, you couldn't wait in the building. You could only go in and visit for a max of 2 hours once a day. And it was hard. But as I was sitting there waiting for him, I started having this thought. I hadn't really thought about it too much, but he's perfectly healthy, but what if something happens? And I started realizing that we've been married for almost 2 decades, and he's done this 13 times with me. Does he feel like this every single time? And it's routine, and we've got good doctors, and we're at a great facility, but you still have that question mark, that what if? And I thought, does he feel like this every single time? And he's done it more than a dozen times. Bless the man. I felt so stressed and overwhelmed, and his surgery was 3 hours long. And I didn't know this until I talked to the doctor, the surgeon, before the procedure started, is that yes, it is routine, and yes, they do it regularly, but bad things can happen, and they can be, you know, some of the complications are serious. If you have a low calcium blood level, that could be almost catastrophic if they injure part of the parathyroid that's behind the thyroid. Didn't know that. Also, if you hit the nerve that's behind there, you could also, somebody could lose their voice forever. And my husband, who is not a huge talker, but he's an excellent communicator. He also loves to sing, and he leads worship at our church. Is very musical. If he couldn't sing, that would be devastating to him. And so I was sitting there thinking about it and, you know, sending up a prayer, just like, let everything go well. But I was so stressed. So when they called me, hey, everything went well, he's being taken out of recovery, he'll be up in his room in about 20 minutes, you can go ahead and meet him there. When I was headed up to the room, I was like, whew, okay, we made it through this. He's doing so much better. It's been, today, let's see, it's been 4 days since he had his surgery, and he's feeling pretty good. I might have put too much of this on. Let's see if we can blend it. He's feeling really good. He was able to take the dressing that he had on it, like leave it on for 3 days, take it off, and he left it on an extra day. I'm like, you better take that off. He was concerned because it's a big piece of clear plastic adhesive that goes over, and it caught onto some of his chest hair and around to like his neck hair. They told him not to shave the day before. And so he's having it stuck in all of his beard hair and his chest hair, and it was huge, and he was just like, oh, I don't want to take it off, it's gonna hurt. It did hurt, but he finally got it off this morning. The good thing is that he's had very little pain, and for that I am grateful. While we were gone, my mom was watching our 2 girls and our pets here at home. She was gonna leave for my brother's a week ago, but she was like, what are you gonna do when you're at the hospital with the girls? Children still aren't allowed in hospitals. And I was like, oh yeah. I said, well, I was gonna go, you know, get him checked in, and then, you know, the girls and I would drop him off and he'd check himself in, and then, you know, I'd swing by, you know, have the girls wait for me out in the, you know, patio area, and I would run in and see him. And I said, you know, for a few minutes, and then we'd go and have dinner. I said, we'd probably just, he'd have to be in the hospital by himself. She's like, well, what if I stay an extra week with the girls? And that way you can spend all the time with him in the hospital. I was really grateful to have my mom here. It was one of those things where I hadn't really thought it would be that difficult. And I would have figured it out, because last July, when I needed to have surgery, my husband rented an Airbnb, and we took the dog and we left the cat here at home with a couple of extra litter boxes and food and water all over the house, and she survived just fine for 4 days. And we took the dog and the kids to an Airbnb, and I was by myself in the hospital. But at that point, last July, nobody was allowed in the hospital. They weren't allowing any visitors at all. You had to drop them off at the front door and pick them up at the front door. And so it was a much quieter stay. It was the quietest stay I'd ever had in the hospital. But since things were different now, but my mom knew they're still not letting kids in. Why don't you let me stay with the kids? I was super grateful to have her here. You know, I have really liked this Pat McGrath blush. More than I expected to, and is that strange to say? I knew it would be nice, but I didn't know how much I would like it. I didn't really think I would like a powder blush right now as much as this one, because I've been so into cream and liquid blushes, the liquid ones from Natasha Denona, the cream ones from Lisa Eldridge, a lot of the other cream ones that I picked up during the Sephora sale, from Melt, from Tower 28. Like, I've been using a ton of those, and I've actually been reaching for this a lot in July, and I like that. And it's kind of easy, very little effort goes into it, and I'm kind of in that place right now. This is a little bit more of the Lisa Eldridge highlight. I'm just going to tap on a little bit here. The hardest thing for my husband, now that he's home and is not allowed to drive a car or lift anything that's heavier than 10 pounds, is the fact that he's a doer. He's never still. So the weekends are always like, time to accomplish things. It's time to work on, you know, this project or that project. He's a hard time sitting still. And I don't have that problem. I'm real good at sitting still. And that just could be that I only have a limited amount of energy every day. I always tell people that I have like this much energy to this much day, and I have to figure out where I'm going to plug it in. And he still has like energy of a normal person. And so when you've been sick for a long time and in pain for a long time and your energy level is diminished like mine is, I'm real good at sitting still. I'll just sit there and crochet and be happy. And sometimes I'm too tired to crochet, so I just sit there and listen to an audiobook or whatever. And I decide like where I'm gonna spend my energy for the day. And he's still got all of this energy and all of this time, but he's only allowed to read a book or, you know, to watch a show or to, like, he's not even supposed to do dishes. He is so frustrated right now, bless his heart. So that first week is the hardest. So get a whole bunch of books that you like, that you've been wanting to read and just haven't had time for. And find your comfortable spot, whether it's, you know, laying in bed reading, whether it's sitting on the couch, whether it's putting your feet up with the ottoman. You know, if you want a cup of coffee, you want a sparkly water. That's what I call like the LaCroix or the Ahas. So I'm like, I'll bring you sparkly water. You can sit up, if it's not too hot in the evenings, you can put up the hammock and lay and read a book in there, but you're not allowed to do anything. And it's driving him crazy. Absolutely crazy. He's been good about it though. You know, the one thing is I really like just this color, but I think I want to add a little bit of this darker sparkly one here. I didn't spend a ton of time getting makeup on last week, but I'll tell you, I did a look very similar to this the days that I was wearing makeup. I had such a good time with my mom visiting. I know that my brother is going to enjoy having her there, but I kind of miss having her here. When I saw her at my uncle's memorial service, it was the first time in 16 months that I'd seen my mom. And I knew it was going to be emotional because this year has been hard for everybody, but I have a lot of friends whose parents, you know, live closer, whose parents live in town, or they only live 3 or 4 hours away, and they've been able to see them. It's been hard for me because I get along pretty well with my folks and I love my parents. So my mom and dad are still trying to figure out when they'll both be able to come out. And I think my mom was like, it's been so hot here. She was here during that heat wave we had. Oh, was it a week and a half ago? Oh, it was terribly hot. We had like temperatures of the highest day was 117. I was like, what is happening? So after my mom being here for that heat wave, she told my dad, let's not come back in about a month or so. Let's wait till September. And I was like, might still be hot in September, but it won't be 117 degrees hot. But my mom hates the heat and she really, really struggles with it. And she was here also when our AC was having problems. Oh, my mom was just like, I can't come back until it's cooler. So I think they might come back in September. I need some more blush. Do you see? I love the shine that this gives, but I definitely need just a touch more blush. I just double blush. Blush first, liquid highlight, and then blush again. Boy, I've been so rambly today. It's been more than a week since I've recorded a video and I can tell I'm kind of like out of the habit and I'm just kind of here, there, and everywhere. I'm gonna throw on some mascara. My kids are doing music for our church's vacation Bible school. We go to a fairly large church and they do the largest vacation Bible school in the vicinity. And my kids are in a band of just other kids. The youngest is 9, the oldest is 13, and it's 5 kids doing all the music. And I'm so proud of my kids. They're leading the songs, and they're my oldest is playing piano and she's playing percussion. So on some songs she's on piano, on some songs she's on percussion. And my youngest is leading vocally while also either playing violin or mandolin. I didn't know this, but the mandolin is tuned the same way a violin is. And if you can play the violin, it's really easy to pick up the mandolin. And so since their music teacher from school, who Lily takes violin from, was saying, you know what, I have another kid playing violin, why don't you grab the mandolin? And Lily was like, I don't have a mandolin. She's like, well, here, borrow mine. And I was like, uh-oh, I think we might need another instrument. So now my 11-year-old is loving mandolin, and I was just doing research this morning about what type of mandolin and you know, what's a good starter, and I'm just like, we don't need any more instruments in this house. But for somebody who's a chronic lover of music and wants to encourage my kids however they can, I would get a used mandolin for my 11-year-old. This is a matte lip pencil from Beauty Pie that I actually really like a lot. I wish it said on here what it was. It just says made in Italy for Beauty Pie. But this is the shade Caught Me. What's nice about it is it's a twist up. It's not one of those that you have to like sharpen. But I love this color. So this is the finished look. This is almost exactly what I wore those couple days in Seattle. I was headed to the hospital to hang out with my husband, and oddly enough, I didn't lose a lot of coverage wearing a mask. This is one of the masks that I wore. You can see there is lipstick on the inside, and there's a little bit of like off the nose and a little bit off the chin, but it wore really well. I was wearing a different powder and I was wearing a different foundation, but it was still, you know, all the rest of the color products were the same. And I think the reason I did something different today is I really wanted to try Nancy's trick of SPF, high coverage foundation, and illuminator and mixed up. And I think it looks really, really pretty. Thank you so much for watching. And thanks for kind of listening to my long, involved, very scattered story. Hopefully I'll be a little more focused for my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Have an incredible day, and I will see you again soon.